Hi guys, it's been a while. I've got a new setup here a little bit. So bear with me here. I have a great show planned for you. Well, it's not great because it's bad. It's bad, bad, bad with Governor Lamont and the lost Constitution state. So let me just finish up what I was doing because I wanted to share this with a few more groups. So as we know, the governor has reinstated his executive powers. I'm going to get into this article about why that's bad, why Connecticut is in the place that it is in, and also some interesting stuff about semaphore, thermal scientific, and where we find ourselves at this moment in time. So just give me 1 second because I didn't give myself enough time to get this going. Let me share in a couple more groups. Don't want to share it there. They'll put me in the slammer for that one. All right, so I have a show planned for you today based on this article that I wrote. So I'm just going to get right into it. There's a couple of developments here. One of those developments is that Governor Lamont has obviously reinstated his executive powers his emergency powers, which gives him a lot of leverage. When you have emergency powers, what it does is it enables you to bypass the typical route of our legislative process. A lot of you guys know this, right? So, over the years that I've been active in Connecticut, I'm constantly asking myself, especially when it comes to legislation that's recently passed with the elimination of the religious exemption. So what comes to, I've been thinking, how is it that thousands of people could show up at the Capitol and the legislators ignore them? Why aren't the legislators listening to the people? When you have thousands of people showing up at the Capitol, writing the legislators, and then you get this arrogant reaction, why are they doing that? So I've really been thinking a lot about this, and I think I've found the reason why they're doing that. So I'm gonna pull up my article, and I will put a link to the article in the comments. You can find the article on my website. I put my website link right over here, jcherrypresents.com. I'm going to be posting more of my material directly to my website, which is something I should have always been doing. So you can sign up on my website for a newsletter, which I haven't even gotten out yet. So don't worry, I'm not going to inundate you with spam. I'm still working on getting that newsletter out there. As some of you know, MailChimp has given people a hard time, so I'm trying to find the best way to reach you guys. But please sign up for my email address. I am collecting those emails, and I will be communicating with you guys. So you can go to my website where you can find this article. I'm going to pull it right up for you guys right now. So this is my latest article. It is called, let me pull this up for you a little bit taller there. So, I'm sorry, guys. I've got all this new stuff. I just updated my website. So you reach me here. I'm so proud. I did all this work on my website. You can support my work here with a donate button, but that's not why I'm going live today. What I'm going live today about is Governor Lamont and the lost Constitution state. Sorry, it's been a minute since I've been live, so I just want to blow this up for you guys a little bit and still keep it in there for you. So we're going to take a look at this. This is a long article. I took a couple weeks writing this article. All the links are here and ready for you. Let me pull that out. So this is Governor Lamont and the lost Constitution state. And what I found out in my research while I was writing this article is the really big problem, as I was saying before. Why is Connecticut so corrupt, right? I think a lot of people ask this question. How come I can call my legislator and I can say, I don't like this law. I don't want regionalization of our property taxes and our zoning rules. I don't want a truck tax. Thousands of people. The one thing that we were able to stop is tolls, ironically, right? But that was 100,000 people. We need mass numbers. But here's why they're not listening. They're not listening because of a thing called public-private partnerships. In my article, and this video isn't going to do total justice to that. That's why I suggest that you read my article. It's on my website, jcherrypresents.com, where I go in and I tie all of the connections with the public-private partnerships. And one of the first things that I talk about with that is things that people will hear this and know, yeah, she's right. I've heard this. The Trilateral Commission. David Rockefeller founded the Trilateral Commission in 1973. What he did is he used his money to buy power. And in the Trilateral Commission, public-private partnerships is how they are utilizing the government. So what happens when you have a public and private partnership with the government, you end up having this big, giant, quasi monstrosity of a government. And now the problem with this is that when you have government and private business join together, you have a recipe for fascism. That is really what's going to get you. It's a recipe for fascism. So public-private partnerships are absolutely terrible. I'm going to go right back to that article as well. But I just wanted to reiterate that and how pervasive and important it is for people to know and understand that. We have quite a few public-private partnerships. Here's one public-private partnership that some of you guys may know and some of you guys may not. In 1913, Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act, creating one of the most powerful public-private partnerships in the world, I would say. The Federal Reserve. Guess what, guys? The Federal Reserve is a prime example of a public-private partnership at the national level. So we basically did away with our treasury, which was controlled through our structure of government and our checks and balances, right? The U.S. Treasury, we once had a gold standard. So now our money is backed by fiat. And the dollar is the currency of the world, though there's a lot of struggle with that right now. The dollar is not going to be the currency of the world for much longer. That's not what this video is about. I'm just pointing out the fact that the Federal Reserve is a public-private partnership. I'd say our problem started in 1913 on a national level. If we could get rid of that, the Federal Reserve Act, we would probably do a lot better. So for Connecticut, which I'm focusing on right now, it wasn't the Federal Reserve Act, actually, that of course affected the whole country. And this has been a long game with power and control over, the people and the government. The United States is unique in the respect that we actually had freedom. And I said had. I don't want to say it like that because I believe that we still have those freedoms if we fight hard for them. I don't want to say had, like we're going to be serfs in a world full of super elites and everybody else is working poor. So we're in a situation right now where it's incredibly important that we know and we understand what we're up against. And public-private partnerships are usurping our democratic process. So here in Connecticut, it's been really bad for the last 30, 40 years, okay? Now, this isn't just partisan, guys. I want you to understand that because this is really, really important to understand. It's not partisan. You got to judge each politician, each representative by their action, what they're doing, because either party could do this. Right now, the Democrats are in control and have been in control for a long time, and we are in dire straits. We need to switch that right away, to just like immediately switch the majority party and the minority party. And then we got to hold their feet to the fire. Like if the minority party gets into power with these public-private partnerships, as they still are, we'd have a period of grace where this newly elected majority party might do more for the people. But if we don't deal with the systemic issue, the public-private partnership, we're only going to have corruption in a different color. So instead of the massive corruption being from the Democrats in Connecticut, we'll have massive corruption from the Republicans, which is one reason why I think not all the Republicans are like this, but one of the reasons why I think the Republicans aren't taking action is because not all of them, some are, but when you look at where we're at and you're not seeing the type of action being taken with the corruption in our state, one's got to ask why. And so in my opinion, after writing this article, that why is because of the public-private partnership is nonpartisan. Public-private partnerships don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. They just care if you're going to play ball. That's the name of the game. So I'm going to pull you back over to this article where I get pretty deeply involved with the Lamonts. Now, Annie Huntress Lamont is the founder of Oak Healthcare FinTech. Oak Healthcare FinTech, let me pull this over here. I just want to get this so you guys can see that pretty well in your screen. So here she is. Her company, now she's involved in two really big venture capital companies, okay? She, in the 80s, or actually late 1970s, I'm sorry if I'm a little bit off on the date that she started, but she joined a firm called Oak Investment Partners. So from the Oak, she started Oak Healthcare FinTech. Now, fintech is a technological means of merging all of our information, our financial data, our health data, all of our information into this tech that allows them to kind of like streamline payments, see what you're doing. It also sets up the stage for a digital currency. It sets the stage for the Great Reset. It sets the stage for social credit scores. It sets the stage for mass surveillance. So Annie Huntress Lamont has made a fortune in the healthcare fintech industry, and she's continuing to make a fortune in the healthcare fintech industry. Now, what's going on in the state of Connecticut is the corruption is so intense and overt that it's mind-boggling. So Annie has a company that she has holdings in. It's called SEMA4, which is part of Thermo Fisher Scientific. So Thermo Fisher Scientific and SEMA4 Genomics, which also goes by SEMA4. It's really, really intense, and I get really deep into the article about all of those connections with references for you that you can go and you can check. So Thermo Fisher Scientific gobbled up SEMA4 and Core Informatics. It's like one big giant thing, but it goes under like the official banner of Thermo Fisher Scientific, or it did for a minute, because now SEMA4 has gone public, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So why you need to be concerned about SEMA4 is SEMA4 is producing the tests for the state of Connecticut. You know all those tests when you hear the testing, all the cases, that's because they're testing using the PCR test. Now, SEMA4 is providing a lot of the testing in the state of Connecticut, especially for schools, government agencies. There's other test providers, but SEMA4 is the biggest one. Now, SEMA4 is Annie Huntress Lamont's. That's her financial interest. She has holdings in it. It's one of her holdings in Oak Healthcare FinTech. I'm going to bring up their website and show you exactly what I'm talking about here. So let me just bring that up. I should have brought that up before. So they have a deal with the state. Now, this was a no-bid contract. This was a no-bid contract that the state of Connecticut was able to just do. Like, I thought we had it. Didn't Rowling go to jail for this? I mean, seriously though, didn't he go to jail for this? So I'm going to pull this up for you guys. So here's SEMA4. These are all of her holdings. As you can see, these are the latest investments. Here's her portfolio, right? Now, this is SEMA4, and there's this portfolio, and it has, if you go here, you can see how we have, I'm going to pull my head over here. These are all a bunch of different companies. Dama Financial, that's connected to the marijuana legislation that just passed. Dama Financial is going to be providing the means for any marijuana businesses in Connecticut to do their financial transactions, because if you do not realize this, the reason why that they need to have Dama Financial is because the federal government hasn't legalized cannabis. So because the federal government hasn't legalized it, you have to work in cash. Now, to have a cash business in this society is very difficult. You need to have a bank to be moving all that money all around, all over the place. So Dama Financial is providing that. I'm kind of getting all over the place here because it's so deep. It's like my head explodes. I don't even know where to begin. So I got to stay focused, but I'm just seeing Dama Financial here. So I want to show you that the SEMA4, whoops, didn't mean to blow that up that high. So the SEMA4, which is her holding, let me find that for you guys. And there's all these different ones. You know what your homework is, guys? I want you to go on Oak Healthcare FinTech, and I want you to look up these companies, and I want you to see if you can find out how many laws that Lamont has passed is benefiting his company. So far, the companies that I found that Lamont's benefiting, his wife's Oak Healthcare FinTech is benefiting, is there's a lot, and then more and more keep showing up. So there's all these different ones that are just mind-blowing. I mean, guys, it's so upsetting that we got to bring them down. We got to bring them down. We have to. I don't know how we're going to bring these guys down, but we have to expose them so much that nobody can deny the fact that this is completely illegal. Now, let me just say this about Lamont. He is heavily connected. He comes from a long line of people who are connected, as a lot of these leaders in positions of power do. First of all, Lamont is not a millionaire. He's a billionaire with a B. Lamont is a billionaire. He drives around, he's flown around in his private jet. He hides his money in trust funds. He's connected to BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. And if you don't know who BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are, I suggest you start to get to know them. It is really, really awful. So Lamont is this very powerful, wealthy guy with lots of connections, as is his wife. So back here to Semaphore. So here is her holding Semaphore. I'm going to pull on this and click on it for you guys so you can see that. It'll come up. Semaphore is a patient-centered health intelligence company. Just that alone, guys. Just that alone is just right there. Intelligence company. What do you mean by that? Founded on the idea that more information, deeper analysis, and increased engagement will improve diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of disease. That part sounds innocent enough. We want technology to propel us into a state of health, right? We want to be healthy, free citizens. Well, not Semaphore. They don't want us free. They're free. We won't be free. But anyway, so this is really, I'm going to connect these dots here for you too. It's so crazy. I just got to stay focused so that it all makes sense. Please check out my article, jterrypresents.com, where I write this and follow it in a really nice timeline. I'm trying to put it together for you guys in a video to encourage you to go read the article, because I'm not going to get into the depths of what the article does in a video. It'd probably take me about 10 videos because it's so deep. And I'm going to connect these things to the Chinese and the Uyghurs. If you haven't heard the Uyghurs, you're going to know about them now. You may have heard of them, you may not have, but I'm going to connect all of this together and connect it back to where we are here in the state of Connecticut. Now, Semaphore has a no-bid contract with the state of Connecticut. I'm sorry, no, Semaphore did bid. No, they did not bid. There's a little confusion. There was a press article that I did read that there was a bidding process, and there was stuff that I read that there wasn't a bidding process. If somebody has a little harder intel on that, please feel free to share that. Everything is made to confuse you, to build upon layer of lies and deceit. Semaphore has a sweetheart contract with the state of Connecticut to provide the testing. So when you see all the cases that are cropping up, cases, right? You can bet that Semaphore is probably doing most of them. They are one of the largest test providers in the states of Connecticut and the country alone. Now, I'm going to also take you over here real quick. I want to show you, this is bad. So Semaphore is providing the testing, PCR cycle testing, which the FDA gave a warning. The FDA said that these tests are producing false positives. To add insult to injury with these Semaphore tests, they're testing them pool testing. Have you guys heard of pool testing? I get into this in my article with a bunch of references for you guys. I'm going to pull the article up again. Hold on a second while I get it up. There's Semaphore. Know this name. This is Oak Healthcare FinTech. You could go online, you can look this up, you can go to the portfolio of all of her holdings, Semaphore. Big, really important thing to know and connect, because these are one of the companies that these people need to be stopped. They need to be called out for what they're doing, and we need to put the fire to the feet of these legislators. Not in a literal sense. I'm not suggesting violence. I'm a pacifist, really. I believe that we can change the world with words, with truth, not violence. That's not where I'm going. And it's a scary time because you could be put into an extremist column now, as we've seen with Facebook, when you're standing out and saying, "Hey, wait a minute, something's wrong here. I'm not liking all this," and then you're treated as if you are the problem, when the problem is the corruption is the problem. SEMA 4 is the problem. So SEMA 4, the FDA gave a warning about their tests. Now, what's really interesting, and you can look this up yourself, the FDA, all the tests, guess what, guys? I learned this while I was writing my article. All of the tests are, guess what? They are under an EUA. They're under an EUA. I'm going to lower my volume a little bit. I might have been distorting a little bit. I'm just noticing that I'm over-modulating. So I apologize if the audio is bad on this one. But yeah, I was over-modulating a little bit. Getting too excited. I see the levels going off. So I apologize if the audio has been a little wonky. So, SEMA 4. They are producing these tests. Most of the tests, all of the government agencies are using SEMA 4 tests. The FDA issued a warning that the SEMA 4 tests were producing high levels of false positives. What happened with all the positive cases? They don't say tests. Notice how they say cases, right? But it's about the tests. So the FDA issues this warning. Here, I'm going to pull back my article. Give me a second here. So the FDA issues this warning. Now, this is the article that I wrote, and it goes into, I've just talked about this earlier in the video about public-private partnerships, how that connects to the Lamonts. I get really deep into that. I'm sorry if I'm backtracking and getting confusing as I'm talking about SEMA 4. But I get into even Eversource and Pura and how that's a public-private partnership, just as an example so people know and understand how pervasive these public-private partnerships are and how they're affecting our life in Connecticut, and how the public-private partnerships are really producing this fertile ground for people like the Lamonts to come in and just really decimate our state and destroy our lives. They're destroying our lives economically in a way that is really going to bring us back to like the dark ages of humanity, where you're going to have a bunch of the serfs or the peasants who are servicing the super elite, and you won't own anything, you won't have property, because the state of Connecticut wants to regionalize the property tax. So that, not even regionalize it, sorry, they want to regionalize the zoning, which is also part of a federal plan, which is also part of a UN plan that connects back to the Trilateral Commission, which all of this stuff I touch on in this article that I wrote that you can find on jcherrypresents.com. So it's just so involved and so deep. And I get into the article, I talk about the Connecticut Municipal Cooperative and leave you links for that so you can go and look. I'm not sure if many of you know that in the state of Connecticut, we have mostly Eversource, right? Well, and that's controlled by the public-private partnership Pura. And we also have a cooperative municipal power source. 5 communities or 5 townships in Connecticut are part of this cooperative, and they pay different rates than the state of Connecticut. It's just an example. I thought the Pura was a really good example of a public-private partnership that people would really see how devastating these partnerships can be for the people's welfare, because we're stuck with Eversource and then we end up subsidizing like solar panels and all this other stuff, and our electricity bills are rising and rising and rising, and these corporations are making more and more and more and more money, and we suffer more, and we have a harder time saving. We have a harder time having our own property, buying property, which is a whole nother ball of wax there too. So I go all into this in the article, connecting these dots with the public-private partnerships. Now, I wanted to pull, there's Josh Elliott. Let me pull this up because I don't want to be all over the place. Let me find exactly where in the article I wanted to go with the SEMA 4. It's a long article. It'll take you a little while to read it. I have it all referenced, and I get into all kinds of things, including drunken legislators and that picture of Josh Elliott there. But I wanted to kind of focus on SEMA 4 because this is the one that is the most egregious. This is the one that's the most shocking. They're all really bad. So you got SEMA 4. You got Thermo Fisher Scientific, Core Informatics, and you get this testing craze, the cases, testing, and a high false positive ratio, which we all know by now a lot about the PCR test, and the inventor of the PCR test, Carrie Mullis, had a lot of things to say about the PCR test, including the fact that it really isn't a diagnostic tool. That with a certain cycle threshold, anyone can find anything about anybody. I mean, like, it's just insane. So let me just pull up this part that I want to share with you guys. Let me pull you back over here so we can see this. So one of the things also that Lamont's doing, this is all going to connect. I'm sorry it's all over the place. It's just so convoluted and twisty and turny. $72 million has been spent by the state of Connecticut with our money to promote this whole Rona world that we're seeing now, to promote the social distancing, the masking, the testing, the vaccination, all of that, and to also help promote Lamont, all the while his wife is making serious money on a sweetheart deal with her company, SEMA4, that she has financial investments in through Oak Healthcare FinTech, which it's just so insane. So there's that. $72 million. And then this particular speech here, if you see, I'll blow this up if you can see this. And you guys can find this in my article and blow that up. There he is, the lovely Edward Minor Lamont, who paid for this particular speech that you're looking at, he paid about $80,000 because everybody's locked out of the building. So, of course, Ned Lamont has to look good. So he had to hire a publicity team to come in and do these speeches for him. Class act, ain't he? So there we go. There's that. Let me keep going here, guys, because there's I want to get to the juicy part. I want to get to SEMA4, the Uyghurs, Thermoscientific, and Joshi Gabal, because they are all connected. Let me pull this over here. I'm going to move me. It's been a minute since I've done a live, so bear with me. I'm on a new machine and got new stuff going here, and that's exciting. But it's thrown me off just a slight bit, so I apologize for that. Here, let's go. So SEMA4, now I'm like all over here. Here we go. I'll blow it up when we get to the part where I want to get to. Here we go. It's very long, and I want you guys to really get, okay, so here we go. There she is, the lady of the day. This is the part that I really want to share with you guys. And then I have a couple videos that I want to share in other articles too. So I'm going to try not to make this video too long and stay focused so you guys can follow this. But please, go read the article, jcherrypresents.com. That's where you're going to find, you're going to find that all of this stuff makes more sense. If I'm being a little too all over the place and you're having trouble following me, I've got it all in my article. It'd be terribly boring for me to just read the article to you. So I'm just trying to give you parts of the article to tell the story in case you may not have time to read the article or whatever. But it's a very long piece, and this is a series that I'm writing this summer. My next piece that I'm working on right now is the eviction moratorium, Unite Us, Unite Connecticut, and the connections with the First Lady of Connecticut, Annie Huntress Lamont. But right now we're talking about SEMA4. It's mind-blowing, guys. Really, seriously mind-blowing. So, the Hartford Courant recognized that the Lamonts had a large, or just a glaring conflict of interest. So what really adds insult to injury is that the Ethics Commission here in Connecticut basically gave the Lamonts a pass and said that the Lamonts could use something called blind trust. So blind trust basically says that although Annie Huntress Lamont is one of the most powerful female venture capitalists on the planet and has made all these deals and is a powerhouse and founded this business, Oak Healthcare FinTech, she's going to have somebody else doing all of her financial stuff for her so that she doesn't know what's going on with her money. True story. I have it in my article. I have it quoted right out of the 16-page Office of the Ethics, the State Office of Ethics wrote up about the Lamonts about using blind trust. Now get this. They cite New York City. And they cite, remember Bloomberg back in the day? So they cite him, and they cite the fact that they use blind trust with Bloomberg. And what that does is like, so if Annie Huntress Lamont could make a fortune by providing testing to the state of Connecticut, that is a conflict of interest, right? But if she doesn't know that she has financial interest in Sema4, it's okay. And she doesn't have to recuse herself from any of the dealings or anything like that. She can be there. It's all good. Sound legit to you? So, this little part says 5 months into Lamont's first term, the Office of State Ethics endorsed a plan in a 16-page legal opinion, which I have a link to in my article, and I quote that too. So let me just read you the deal here a little bit. Okay, and then let me also make this point again about public-private partnerships. And I cover this in my article as well. So with public-private partnerships, one of the really scary things about public-private partnerships is the fact that they do not have to follow certain basic laws. So they don't have to participate in FOIA. In fact, the way it works is they don't have to give, like, public figures have to release the information. Like we saw Fauci's emails, they're working with the public. They're passing laws that affect public interest. So there's this thing called FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. And that allows the public to see what's going on. And it's very helpful and it's important. But when you have a public-private partnership, you have something called proprietary rights. Now, proprietary rights in and of themselves are not a problem. The problem is when you have governments enmeshed with private business to create a quasi-public-private partnership. That is where it becomes a problem. So Annie Huntress Lamont is sitting in these meetings. She's not recusing herself out of meetings talking about Sema4. But we're never going to know this because what they're doing behind closed doors. In fact, Lamont's reopening team is not even fully publicly disclosed. We have a few members of that team that we know of, Ezekiel Emanuel being one of them. I'm going to do a whole show on him. I did a show on him last summer. But the point is they could be making all these deals, this financial stuff, and all outside of the public eye. And that's really pretty scary. That's one of the advantages of public-private partnerships. And that they're basically writing a lot of these laws. And what they do is they set up a contract. So Sema4 contracts with the state of Connecticut. But the way that, and they'll say free testing, right? But it's not free testing. The state of Connecticut is paying for the testing, okay? It's not free vaccination. The state of Connecticut and the federal government are paying for those things. Do you know what that means? We are paying for those things. Those things are not free. And in that process of payment, there's a lot of money being made from these companies like Sema4. Now, I had read somewhere it was up to about $3 million a day. I haven't verified that fact, if it's $3 million a day in profit from Sema4. I have to go a little deeper following the money to see, and they're really good at hiding the money. Annie Huntress Lamont is great at hiding money. She puts the money in the Cayman Islands. She wants Connecticut. Connecticut Innovations is an investment, a venture investment firm. It's part of how Connecticut invests. So Connecticut has its own venture capitalist group, basically, Connecticut Innovations. It's nuts, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. I just started reading about Connecticut Innovations. But anyway, Annie Huntress Lamont is talking about having a Cayman Island account for Connecticut. You can't make this stuff up. They don't even care. They don't even try to hide this craziness at this time. We got to do something about this, guys. It's just so serious here. Let me blow this up here. So, I say it's all a game of hide the money, trust funds, and investments. The Lamonts are pros. Despite the obvious conflicts of interest for the governor and the striking news of his wife's holding, Sema4 quickly fades away to daily pandemic numbers. How convenient that the mass testing of otherwise a healthy population of Connecticut would yield so many positive results in new cases. testing has become a major means of data and profit that then leads to executive orders like curfews, shuttered businesses, forced masking, and closed schools. Never before in our history as a country have we dealt with a virus like this. The virus takes up so much news that everyone forgets about the Lamont's business dealings and the impact it is having on their lives and livelihoods. Viruses have plagued humanity since humanity walked this earth. Life is a risk, and no amount of human intervention, and especially not the government, can keep anyone safe from a virus. Period. All the power a government has is to make recommendations, and that is all it should have. You know, every day we get into our car, we live our life, we go for a walk. Anything can happen at any time. We don't live in a perpetual state of fear. Nobody would live. You would never get in your car. You wouldn't leave your house. You live in a bubble. So the fact that we find ourselves here today is just really disconcerting, right? The government is promising you something. They're offering you safety, they say, but they're not. False positive tests are not keeping us safe. I'm going to play you this video real quick before I go on with this article. This video that I'm going to play you is of Matthew Carter. Matthew Carter was the state epidemiologist of Connecticut. I think he still is. I haven't checked on that lately, but I'm pretty sure that he still is. I know that we don't have Renee Coleman Mitchell anymore, but I still think we have Matthew Carter as the state epidemiologist. So back in March, right before the shutdown, they were having a hearing up at the Capitol. I happened to be at the hearing. Now this video, I didn't film it myself. I was packing up because I had another hearing I needed to be in, but I was meant to be there to hear this because I went back later and found it on CTN and clipped it because it would just been buried or taken away, and it just nobody would ever know that this even happened at all, except I was there and I heard it, and I didn't leave. I'm standing there listening to what Matthew Carter was saying. And at the time, I had no idea where we were going with this. It was just an intuition, you know? So let me play you this. And this was an older video that I made, so there's a couple of screenshots, and I'm gonna leave it there. It's only about a minute long, but I'm gonna play it from its entirety. Just kind of shows how things have changed, you know? So this is at a time when the CDC was saying, don't test asymptomatic people. And then Lamont was saying, oh, don't listen to the CDC. Can't make this stuff up. So I'm going to play this video for you guys.
What is the percentage of people we're actually going to be testing for coronavirus that are showing symptoms? Are we sort of rationing out who we can test? Because I know you said it could be the flu, it could be cold. It could be
this is true for all laboratory tests that are done. They should only be done on people who are sick, because that's what was mentioned earlier. Testing somebody who's not sick is much more likely to give you a false positive than anything else. So in medicine, as a rule, we don't test people who are not sick. This is not a test for, are you a carrier of this virus? The reason to do this test is actually to establish a diagnosis in people who are sick, so we know who has coronavirus infection and who has some other cause for their illness.
People who are sick. Right? Do you ever get a flu test when you didn't have the flu? Did you hear? Look, let's just go back again. One more time.
It should only be done on people who are sick, because that's what was mentioned earlier. Testing somebody who's not sick is much more likely to give you a false positive than anything else. So in medicine, as a rule, we don't test people who are not sick. This is not a test for, are you a carrier of this virus? The reason to do this test is actually to establish a diagnosis in people who are sick, so we know who has coronavirus infection and who has some other cause for their illness.
So what changed? What changed? How did we go from that standard medical practice of not testing healthy people? You only test sick people, which seems like common sense. So how did everything change? How did we go from there to this? And now, let me show you this. So this is my article. I have it all referenced. I don't put stuff out there that's fake or hyperbolic. It's hyperbolic just in and of itself. If I ever put something out there and I'm wrong, I will retract it. It can happen. Everything that's in this article, I spent a couple of weeks writing it. It's all there. I got all my links in there with even screenshots of things with links to back all that stuff up. Okay, they're pool testing. That's number one. I know my brother-in-law was pool tested. He knew about pool testing because his wife is a nurse. So let me explain this to you, what pool testing is, because I was talking about it earlier and I don't think I explained it. Pool testing, and I talk about this in my article too. So pool testing is, say you got 5 people, right? They test those 5 people. They take the swabs from those 5 people. And they throw them all in a batch together, 5, 10, 20. I'm not sure how big a pool is, right? So if you get a positive out of that one person and you got like 5 people that were tested in that pool, guess what? They're all positive. So my brother-in-law asked, and they said, no, it wasn't pool test. And later on found out that it was. Now, granted, his wife, who was a nurse, she did get COVID. She was a nurse working in the hospital on the COVID floor. And on the day that this poor woman, she was so very, very sick, she was being flown to Hartford Hospital. Her hospital was striking because the state of Connecticut wasn't providing them the proper PPE for the healthcare workers. You know who should be wearing PPE? Healthcare workers. That's about it. That's it. I'm not going to even go there right now. But healthcare workers, right? Because you're working with sick people. So you want to do everything you possibly can to protect yourself from viral infection. Though, when they fit you for a mask in a hospital, they do, and a friend of mine who's a nurse told me this, they do a test where they have you smell something, and if you can smell it, the mask doesn't fit right. They're specifically fitted with these masks. That's a whole other story. I'm not going to go there with that. But, so the pool testing. So the idea behind the pool testing was most people don't know they could be pool tests. They have no idea that they can go in for a COVID test and it could be a pool test. You should ask. You may not get the truth, but if you did get a positive, you should ask and inquire. Somehow my brother-in-law was able to find out that he was pool tested. But yeah, so they use pool testing. And the FDA issued a warning that the SEMA4 test, that was also Thermo Fisher Scientific, it's going to get more crazy. So let me read this quote to you. The state of Connecticut has retained SEMA4 as a COVID-19 testing provider. SEMA4, Annie Huntress Lamont. SEMA4, Annie Huntress Lamont. Conflict of interest. Where is the state office of ethics, or the state ethics office? Oh, I know. Annie doesn't know. She has no idea that her holding SEMA4 is making money off of testing that the state is buying. The state is buying the tests. You're buying the tests. I'm buying the tests. We are purchasing these tests, and Annie Huntress Lamont is going to the bank, and she's saying, oh yeah, man, let's open up that Cayman Island, get on our jet, and go to Maine. Guess what? They're going to be hanging out with the Obamas at Obama's big Martha Vineyard shindig. Because it's a club, and we ain't in it. So the state of Connecticut has retained SEMA4 as a COVID-19 testing provider for state employees, first responders, residents of long-term care facilities, and patients requiring care at primary care facilities. That means that SEMA4 is providing almost all the testing in the state of Connecticut. Let's just be real. I'm going to get a little deeper into where their tests are and find out how many SEMA4 tests. It's going to take me a little bit more time to do that. It's a little deeper of a dive. This is stuff that you guys could go and you can follow my links. Hey man, if anybody out there has got that kind of curious mind and likes to research and investigate, let's team up. Send me a message. Send it to me through my website. Don't send it to me on Messenger. I hate Messenger. I don't use Messenger too often. I appreciate people communicating with me on Messenger. Facebook's reading all that. I guess they're reading all your messages everywhere, but Messenger just really weirds me out. Everything about Facebook is weirding me out right now. So be very cautious with it. I know I'm streaming on Facebook. I'm also streaming on my pirate channel on YouTube and on Twitter right now as well. We'll see how long my pirate channel on YouTube lasts for. It's called Sparks Fly. If you, maybe I'll put a link into that. We'll keep that going because it was, they kicked me off YouTube a while ago. So, so the SEMA4 is providing all these tests. SEMA4's end-to-end COVID-19 testing solution. Okay, numerous higher education institutions, they're all the people, healthcare providers, and large enterprises are also currently leveraging SEMA4's end-to-end COVID-19 testing solution. All entries working with SEMA4 are benefiting from our best-in-class COVID-19 testing with short turnaround times and a seamless digital experience. Here's where it starts to get funky, guys. And this is where it gets a little crazy. I'm going to try and keep this within an hour. I might go a little bit over an hour. But it's so gosh almighty. All right. So let me just read you a little bit more here. This is all from my article on jadecherrypresents.com, but you can read it for yourself and check the references out and go do more research because this is very deep. It's like a big giant mountain and we need many to start investigating this, writing about it, and talking about the conflicts of interest of our governor. Governor Rowland went to jail for a lot less. We have to stop this now. We have to, for the sake of our children, for the sake of our livelihood. I mean, we might be pushed out of Connecticut just because if they pass this, if Martin Looney gets his way and they put a statewide property tax on our property and they push the TCI, that's also coming, the TCI, the Transportation Climate Initiative. Yeah, I touch the surface of climate stuff in this article a little bit, just very briefly, but she's got her fingers in that pie too, and I don't want to get too distracted and all over the place and confuse you guys. But so we have got to do something to expose this guy to make it stop because it's only going to get worse. We, at least in the next election, got to get rid of his supermajority. We have to. There's a special election happening in Greenwich right now, or not right now, but they have two candidates. They have Ryan Fazio, I believe is his last name, and there's a woman, she's from California, the Democrat, I want to say her name is Gretchen, could be wrong on that, but she is a carpetbagger from San Francisco. She moved to Greenwich, Connecticut a couple of years ago, or maybe last year, I'm not 100% sure about that, bought herself a sweet mansion, $6.7 million mansion in Old Greenwich. Yeah, she's going to do a lot for the people, her people, not us. So Oak Healthcare FinTech recently closed their fourth fund with a whopping $1.4 billion in investments thanks to the skills of Annie Lamont and her partners, according to the Pennsylvania Public School Employees Retirement System Public Investments Memorandum. I'm just kind of showing you how Annie gets around. I mean, this is really important to know. This is like one big giant ball of crap, but it all connects. So as I'm talking about SEMA4 and I jump over here, I want you to see the connection. So Annie Hunter Lamont just scored a fund, right? So these funds, basically, it's a gambling scheme. So what the fund does, so they're working in Pennsylvania. We have this issue here in Connecticut. We have a similar thing going on. BlackRock was bidding on it. Anyway, so Annie secures $1.4 billion fund, and she got $100 million from the Pennsylvania Public School Employees Retirement System. I bet you folks in Connecticut have a lot of things to say about the retirement system and the pensions in Connecticut. So yeah, she scored that fund and she's making serious bank off of that. And that's a public-private partnership that she is in Pennsylvania with her company, Oak Healthcare FinTech. And she also introduced me to this concept, and I'm going to let you guys know. It's called REIT. It's real estate. Let me just get all that acronym together. It eludes me a little bit. It's called REIT. It's REIT. And it's basically, what is REIT? So REIT is, listen to this. Okay, this is what it is. So REIT is real estate investment trusts, guys. Remember BlackRock? Wall Street has figured out there's a lot of money in residential properties, places that people like us buy, homes, real estate investment trust. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. Yes, that's a whole. See, in this article, I keep finding more things I'm going to be writing about. So I'm just touching this. I just wanted to put that birdie in your brain. Yesterday on Twitter, BlackRock was trending because of the eviction moratorium that the CDC just placed again. And the Supreme Court is striking it down. So it's really scary times, guys, because the state of Connecticut is also looking into real estate investment trusts. Okay? So let me get back to SEMA 4. Public-private partnerships. This is all made possible by public-private partnerships. I think we are at the worst of it. This is like, if we don't do something about it, we're not going to own our homes anymore. Okay? Your children will not be able to own a home. They'll live in an apartment that is controlled by Vanguard, BlackRock, or State Street. That's what they're gearing up to. There's a video out there from the World Economic Forum that says, you'll own nothing and be happy. Because, you're selfish if you want to own a home. It's not green. You should live in a little tube in a smart city. A whole other story. Anyway, let's keep going. Let me get you guys down to, I'm going to share you this paragraph. It is common practice for states to use public-private partnerships to fund programs, though it should not be. What's shocking is the fact that the First Lady of Connecticut is a venture capitalist making deals with her private company for a public entity, the state of Pennsylvania. That's what we're seeing publicly because she doesn't have a conflict of interest with that, right? She's making serious money off of the government in another state, taking people's properties away. That's part of her investment plan. She talks about that in her proposal. She also talks about how the healthcare field is worth trillions of untapped dollars. You can go read all this stuff about her. I suggest you start to really educate yourself about Annie. I have a bunch of links that you can follow. You could read more. Now let's get into Josh Gabal. You notice something about Josh Gabal? Every time Lamont has a press conference, he's always referring to Josh Gabal. Well, Josh Gabal is a genius. He's the tech guy genius. He's your technocratic hero for the technocrats. He was at IBM right as they began to digitize patents. So IBM digitized the patents. It's changed the scope of everything, the digital patents. So he was instrumental in that. And basically what he's come to do is bring us into the fourth industrial revolution. He's quoted in the Hartford Courant saying such. That's his role. He is combining his technological brain and his technological know-how to take your medical data and put it into this one system where it's streamlined and you get something like a COVID passport. That's it in a nutshell, in a very layman kind of way to explain that to you guys. It's going to get weirder. This is the weirdest part that's coming that I'm getting to, where I'm going to connect the Uyghurs, Thermo Fisher Scientific, and the mass surveillance of the Chinese people, especially the Uyghur population in China. And it's just that Zhejiang is the name of the province. I have another little video I'm going to show you on that. But I want to first kind of, enlighten you a little bit more about Josh Gabal. So Josh Gabal is the Chief Operating Officer of Connecticut. He is the Commissioner for the Department of Administrative Services, aka DOS. DOS runs the state. Josh and Annie have a history. Annie's company, Oak Healthcare FinTech, invested $17.5 million into Core Informatics. Josh Gabal is CEO. He had this to say about this. Now remember, I told you guys how it works with this testing entity. Thermo Fisher Scientific gobbled up SEMA 4, and gobbled up Core Informatics. They all and then you got SEMA 4 genomics, which is a whole other topic that we're going to get into as well. If you don't know what genomics is, you need to know that. You need to know that immediately. You need to know what that word is inside and out. And I'll cover that a little bit. My article briefly touches on it, but I'll get into that as we get further in. So Josh Gabal, so let me just read you these quotes here that he wrote about. Let's see if I could blow this up for you guys so you can read along with me. Let's see. I should get a highlighting tool, and I will. I apologize. This is a new system that I got, and I haven't gone live in a while because I've been writing this article and just busy with my kids. So I haven't had the time to really... Let me see if I can blow this up. Here we go. Blowing it up a little bit. So you guys can maybe read along with that. So, here, let me see here. So this is what he had to say about this. So Oak Healthcare FinTech believes the healthcare market is a multi-trillion-dollar industry that will continue to grow while still remaining ripe for service and technology improvements that will help clinicians improve care and provide investors with decades of value-add growth. Healthcare, human health should not have anything to do with venture capitalism. Human health should, it shouldn't be that people get to invest in ways to make money off of human suffering. I'm sorry, that's just a bad business plan. We have to figure something out about that. I don't know. Maybe somebody would say, well, that's too much like socialism or communism. I don't know. There's just something that rubs me really wrong that there's these investors in these technologies that deal with human health and stuff. I don't know. Maybe there's a better way. Hopefully we'll figure that out. That's just my opinion. So, he's just praising. I'm sorry, guys. Let me zoom that out a little bit more. Okay. So here he goes. He said, all entities working with SEMA4 are benefiting from our best-in-class COVID-19 testing. I already read that one. Sorry about that. So they're just talking about unlocking value and blah, 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 blah. So it is common practice for state, oh, I've already read you that one too. So the team at Oak Healthcare FinTech, sorry guys, wait a minute. Let me get this last quote for you guys. We are thrilled to, so 2 years later in 2017, I'm sorry, it's so like all over the place. 2 years later in 2017, Thermo Fisher Scientific acquired Core Informatics. So you see how it's like it's like a snowball where they're gobbling each other. It just becomes this big thing. Although they all kind of retain their autonomy, and then they do weird things where they set up other companies that do business as this or that. They purposely make this confusing and convoluted so it's very hard for the average person to see it even though it's right in our face. Because it's just like this, it's like a ball of rubber bands. You get those big balls of rubber bands. You start with rubber band, and you got a giant ball of rubber bands. That's kind of like what SEMA4 Thermo Fisher Core Informatics turned into. That's providing the testing in the state of Connecticut. So we are thrilled to join Thermo Fisher Scientific team to help accelerate the future of the digital lab. This is where Josh Gabal comes in with his stuff, because that's what he's doing, the digital lab. Josh Gabal, Chief Executive Officer of Core Informatics, which he's now Chief Executive Officer of, or he was VP of Thermo Fisher Scientific. I think he's still Chief Executive Officer at Core Informatics. At least it says that on Annie's website, which I'll take you guys back to, and we can look at that ourselves. So here, they're all excited. Yay, it's been bought out by... bought up by this other company, and it's just so wonderful. And there she is, the lady of the day, Annie Huntress Lamont, with her proud display of, they've got $3.3 billion. And you know what? They were founded in 2014. She founded Oak Healthcare FinTech in 2014, interestingly. So Annie's company, Oak Healthcare FinTech, has substantial investments in Core Informatics, which was bought by Thermo Fisher Scientific in 2020. Oak Healthcare FinTech, along with BlackRock and a dozen other investment companies, including Connecticut Innovations, which is the state's investment fund. So the state has its own investment fund. That's not benefiting the people. That's the one. She wants to take the investment funds and put them in the Cayman Islands. Public money. She's publicly saying this. I'm taking public money and putting it in the Cayman Islands. She already does that with her own stuff, but she wants to do that for the state too, which is not really for us. Just remember that. So listen, here it gets better. So they partner up with BlackRock and a dozen other investment companies, including Connecticut Innovations, which is a quasi-public private investment fund, all invested in SEMA4. So how is that blind trust working with the office, the ethics office? How is this happening? And did you know that Lamont defunded? He he defunded. There's I'm sorry, it totally eludes me right now, but they put together a ethics office, something else other than what we have now, and for after Roland, and he just defunded that. Or maybe it is the ethics office, and I'm totally wrong on that. I apologize. But anyway, Lamont was defunding the people that in the state of Connecticut are supposed to keep an eye on conflicts of interest and things that are unethical, like this, like SEMA4 and Annie Huntress Lamont, and all the testing and false positives. Completely unethical if you ask me, but what do I know? Blind trust. They have blind trust like billionaire Bloomberg did when he was mayor of New York City. How'd that work out? So listen to this, guys. Let me blow this back up. Sorry about that. So spun out of the Mount Sinai Health System in June 2017, SEMA4 is the second digital healthcare company in a week to reach $1 billion valuation from investors. Row 2 is now worth over $1 billion. In this case, SEMA4's $121 million financing came from BlackRock, Deerfield, and more capital, and follows only 12 months after another $120 million institutional financing from investors, including Blackstone, Section 32, Oak Healthcare, FinCheck, Day Ching, and Connecticut Innovations Fund. Also in 2020, the state of Connecticut signed a contract with SEMA4 to provide COVID-19 testing. The state is also contracted with other test providers, but SEMA4 is the largest, providing tests nationwide, especially for government schools and universities. SEMA4 and Thermo Fisher Scientific teamed up in 2017, according to Genome Web. SEMA4 spun out of New York's Mount Sinai Health System in June 7, 2017. Recently agreed to implement several modules of core informatics platform for science, including a laboratory information management system as its two popular lab facilities. Meanwhile, core informatics is being absorbed into Thermo Fisher Scientific, which bought Brantford, Connecticut-based core informatics in March for an unspecified amount. Following the acquisition, Thermo Fisher moved core into a new digital science division that also includes LIMS assets of Thermo's Informatics and Chromatography Group. Chromatography Group. I'm not even sure what chromatography is, but that was quoted out of Genome Web. So testing for COVID is still being issued under an emergency usage authorization from the FDA. If the state that provides the tests processes those tests in a lab that is certified, then the tests don't need EUA approval. So that was kind of weird. So if you go look at the FDA site, you could see all of the different emergency usage approvals, and I highly suggest that you guys go do that because you can see all the things that they're approving, and it's nuts. So the test, the mask, the vaccine, it's all under emergency usage authorization. None of these things are approved by the FDA. Not that it even matters that much, because just remember the FDA approved things like formaldehyde, Vioxx, cigarettes, look at baby powder. Now they get Johnson & Johnson sunscreen. I mean, come on, right? So Thermo Fisher Scientific is the one that's listed as the entity that's getting the approval from the FDA. I thought that was interesting. So this was from the FDA. As you can see here, risk of inaccurate results with Thermo Fisher Scientific TACPath COVID-19 combo kit. So basically, the FDA said, we discovered that this test is producing false positives. Be cautious. That's it. That's it. Here, we can just read this. This is, here, let me read this to you guys. This was a press release. This was, the DPH released a statement. This is what they had to say about it. Take a listen. The false positive test results were discovered by the Department of Public Health laboratory scientists during an examination of previously positive samples to determine the feasibility of testing pooled. See, they even admit it. Pooled, right? Specimens at the state lab, meaning that they took a bunch of people's swabs, threw them in a thing, that whatever, and what if there's a one positive in that, it'll give you a whole false positive for a group of people. And I guess it could happen for negative too, but whatever. So let me take you to here. I wanted, because I've been going on for a while, and this is a really long article. This is just more about the FDA warnings about Thermo Fisher Scientific kit. This is true, and this is Matthew Carter. I played his video earlier where he talks about the fact that you don't test healthy people. You don't test people who are not sick. People who are not sick are not called asymptomatic. They're called healthy people. We didn't always call people who are walking around their daily lives who are not having any symptoms asymptomatic. Unbelievable. So I want to bring you guys into something that, and then I'm going to close. I have a couple of videos I'm going to show you, and I'm going to close this out. I've got a little while to go, so let me not get ahead of myself. But I want to bring you into something that's really important. Like I said, you can find this article on my website. It's long, it's in depth. It gets into a lot of what's happening in our state, trying to connect all the dots together so that we have a real understanding of why we have so much corruption in the state of Connecticut. And nothing is going to change, guys, until we deal with public-private partnerships and make that something that doesn't happen anymore. And I don't even know, it's so corrupted how that's even possible. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself or pessimistic about it, because sometimes I think too much and it feels so insurmountable. All I know is that we need to keep spreading this information. We need to keep talking about it. We need to keep screaming our heads off about it, because somebody has got to look at this and say, come on, we can't live like this. No decent human being allows this kind of corruption to happen at the detriment of the future of our children. I mean, isn't that what all adults should care about, is the next generation's future? Like, how we set up for that, so that our kids can have access to resources and things that, I worry that our children won't have the ability to own a home or have access to the resources and freedoms and liberties that we do, because they'll be stripped of them living in a COVID-19 84 world where they're going to have to ask the government for permission to walk into a grocery store via a COVID pass. The Chinese are already doing this. The Chinese, okay, this is perfect segue into that. This is not Asian hate either. This is the Chinese government. Let me just be very clear, so somebody doesn't conflate what I'm saying, that I'm some kind of right-winger and that I don't like Chinese people. That's bullshit. Sorry to swear, but that's the type of mentality sometimes that drives me nuts. So let me just read this to you, because it's just like so involved. So involved. All right. Corporate America is in a biotech race for data. Data is gold in the age of technology. Let me blow this up for you guys so you can read this. Corporate America is in a biotech race for data. Data is gold in the age of technology. DNA data is the biggest prize. DNA holds the key to biometric surveillance and so much more. China is ahead of the race with DNA data. As a dictatorship, it's easy for China to be in the lead. China has the world's largest gene bank. Genomics. Put that in your mind. Genomics. It's the economics of collecting them genes. Genomics. Read about it. Educate yourself about it. So China has the largest gene bank in the world, and they didn't do it ethically either. Let me tell you. The Chinese have harvested DNA from pregnant women with a diagnostic test. They did not tell the women using the prenatal diagnostic test made by Beijing Genomics Institute, now known as BGI. The women did not know their data would be stored forever and that the test was collecting everything it could from the mother and the baby. The women were told that their data would be kept for a period of time and that they were only looking at prenatal abnormalities. it would remain confidential and they could request to destroy it at any time. Not only did BGI get DNA from women in China, they also did so in other parts of the world too. According to Reuters I was pretty blown away by this. I put a link to this article in my article. I quote Reuters article here. They did a pretty thorough report on this. I was impressed. You know, journalism isn't completely dead. They figure, well, you know, if the English speakers and stuff are paying attention to the Chinese, they ain't so concerned about that because, you know, we're like on the opposite side of the world. So they figure, yeah, whatever. Hold on a second, guys. I'm so sorry about that. I lost that for a second. Let me get this. I'm just trying to move this over so you can see it a little better. Here we go. So, let me move this here. So, Shenzhen-based BGI shot to global prominence last year after selling or donating millions of COVID-19 test kits and gene sequencing labs outside of China. U.S. Security Agency warned that this part of an effort to collect large amounts of foreign genetic material. BGI said this year it has built 80 COVID-19 labs in 30 countries, which it plans to repurpose for reproductive health screening. It says its COVID-19 tests do not collect patient DNA, but its prenatal tests do. So I don't know, the women who took the prenatal test had no idea that the test was picking up more than what they said they were. Why couldn't they do that with any of these diagnostic tests? And people have speculated about this, and they will say, oh, that's conspiracy theory or whatever. But there is a good reason to speculate about that because there is a problem. So listen to this. So Reuters also reported China's collection and analysis of the DNA of its Uyghur Muslim population, including systematic collection of samples from residents in Zhejiang, I think I'm saying that correctly, Xinjiang, that's how you say it, Xinjiang region. Xinjiang has drawn sharp criticism. The United States sanctioned 2 BGI subsidiaries last year for what it called China's abusive DNA collection and analysis schemes to repress its citizens. So you can read more about that. Very, very, very interesting. So here is where you really want to pay attention. All right, so you guys got to read all about this and check the links out from my article at jcherrypresents.com. where you can read more. I put the link to the Reuters report, and I also put the link to Human Rights Watch. So here's what happened. Let me just read this to you. Human Rights Watch uncovered that a U.S.-based company, Thermo Fisher Scientific, has supplied Xinjiang police with some of these DNA sequences. Human Rights Watch wrote to the company in August of 2017, informing them that Chinese authorities are collecting DNA from individuals not suspected of crimes, as well as across China, and asking them to comment on a range of issues, including their human rights policies and blah, blah, blah. Thermo Fisher Scientific did not comment. They did say they were giving it up. I'm sorry. Thermo Fisher did say that they were going to stop selling those tests, or stop selling the technology, not tests, sorry. It's more than just testing. Semaphore genomics, Thermo Fisher Scientific, Core Informatics, it's all part of technocracy. It's all part of the technocratic dictatorship that they're trying to build for the fourth industrial revolution. Well, you'll be tracked and traced everywhere you go. I kid you not. Here it is in black and white. We already have the technology to use it. The Chinese are already using it. They're imprisoning the Uyghur population in Xinjiang province in China, northern province in China that has been occupied by these Muslims, Asian Muslims forever, and they're a minority population, and they call them domestic terrorists and extremists. The Chinese use the excuse to surveil the Uyghur population because they say they're dangerous. They're extremists. So, Thermo Fisher Scientific knows that they're selling this technology to the Chinese, who is in turn using it to spy on the Uyghur population. And there's also other minority groups in China that they're using it. And anyone who is outside, any dissidents who are criticizing the Chinese government, they would be included in this as well. So it goes all into what the Human Rights Watch writes a lot about what's going on in China with the Uyghur population. I quoted like 3 paragraphs. I'm not going to read it all to you. I will put, I'm going to read you this last paragraph because this is important just to give you guys an understanding of what we're dealing with. This is Thermo Fisher Scientific, which is part of Sema4, which is part of Annie Huntress Lamont's holding company that the chief operating officer of Connecticut is deeply involved in and helped build the technology, okay? And they're using this technology. The Chinese are using this technology to enslave their people. They even have a social credit score. How do you think they're doing all that? In 2019, after being caught selling the Chinese the tools to monitor its citizens, Thermo Fisher Scientific said they would no longer sell to the Chinese government. However, they have not stopped selling the technology to the Chinese, and they admit that they still do so if you press them on it. They even have a headquarters in China. They're watching what the Chinese government is doing to the Chinese people and taking notes, man. Because look at this. As we go through, this just irks me beyond belief. So just a little bit about the Uyghurs. This is out of Wikipedia that I quoted. I put a link here that you guys can access. Uyghurs in China being detained in government re-education camps since 2014. The Chinese government, under the direction of the Chinese Communist Party during the administration of the CCP General Secretary Xi Jinping, has pursued policies leading to more than 1 million Muslims, the majority of them Uyghurs, being held in internment camps without any legal process. This has become the largest scale detention of an ethnic and religious minority since World War II. Thousands of mosques have been destroyed or damaged, and hundreds of thousands of children have been forcibly separated from their parents and sent to boarding schools. This just goes more and more into it, where I quote them, you know, and I just say here, it's hard to believe that the state of Connecticut's very own Chief Operating Officer, Josh Cabal, the brains behind the merger of tech and biosurveillance, and First Lady Annie Huntress Lamont, the most powerful female venture capitalist on the planet, are tied to the biometric surveillance of over 1 million Uyghurs. Here is something of shocking reality, as if this all isn't shocking enough. Marketing and lobbying by technology suppliers is often behind pushes for the broadest possible use of DNA profiling. In 2016, for instance, a representative of a U.S. lobbying firm working for Thermo Fisher Scientific described in a conference presentation a development of universal DNA databases as inevitable. He noted that the expansion of these to Western countries or other countries with democratic forms of government face significant hurdles, such as the open and public parliamentary process and the culture of being influenced by opposition and protest. This was written in Nature, by the way, and there's a whole nother paper in Nature that I put the links there that you should really read about because they start to get into genomics, they get into the DNA. We as a people need to press our legislators to put laws that protect our DNA. As that is our property. It's your gold. Your DNA is your gold. Nobody has a right to it. And if they take your DNA without your permission, they should go to jail. If they trick you with a test and they're collecting more than they say they're going to, because do you know what Sema4 is collecting off of those tests? I sure don't. I certainly wonder. It is an underhanded tactic, and with proprietary ability to hide things because it's your proprietary right. They're just looking to want to look at the DNA, not to control or surveil or whatever it is they're doing with it. And they can do a lot with DNA, guys. It's just the tip of the iceberg. So, I'm sorry about that. I know this is going over longer than I wanted it to. I appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. Maybe I'll clip this up or try to do segments of it. It's a long article. I wanted the video to be under an hour, and it's so hard to just keep it short because of the depths of where we're at with this. And I still have a couple more things that I want to show you. So are we being prepped to be continuously surveilled and monitored by our government? The post-COVID government is trying to set the foundation for this: mass testing, mandated vaccines, contact tracing, shutdowns, social distancing, and talk of vaccine passports, all for your safety. Just like China, it's for the safety of all. That's what the Chinese use. It's like the same thing. It's just a different culture. We have it here where we're like, oh, the January 6th riot and insurrection. Insurrection? It wasn't an insurrection. I mean, this is ridiculous. Should the people have stormed the building and broken? Why was the people's house locked in the first place, right? Why? Why were the police letting the people into the building? Why? Really? You're going to start like a domestic terrorism thing? You could see it in the papers, this language about extremism. Facebook's putting out a warning. You've been exposed to extremist content. You can report this. You can get help. Because they're setting the stage for this. Hillary Clinton, in a speech in 2015, she's in a speech talking about how adult camps would be great. What did she mean by that? What did Hillary Clinton mean by adult camps would be great? Because the Chinese government started to lock people up in these camps using this technology to surveil them. Not only did they use this technology from Thermo Fisher Scientific to surveil the Uyghur population, they forced them to do this physical for all. Everybody had to participate in a physical for all, and the Chinese government wrote it like, oh, it's great. They're helping the Uyghur population. They want to make sure everybody's healthy. So they took their blood. So they scan the Chinese people. They scan their irises. They scan their face. They take their blood. They take all the DNA information they get from their blood. They go up into the nasal pharynx and the nose. They collect DNA from up there. They're taking everything. And then they use it to build like a digital biometric surveillance system that can pinpoint any human on the planet with 5G and all of the technology that they have. This all connects. And these are very scary times. I remember when a friend of mine was trying to educate me about 5G, I was having trouble with it. I was like, oh my God, it's too much information. I can't handle it. And it's all connected because that's what they're doing. The Chinese government the Chinese people are the most surveilled people on the face of the planet. And that's coming to the United States. So Josh Cabal's company, Thermo Fisher Scientific, who is part of Sema4, Core Informatics, provided the tools to the Chinese government to do this. They are now giving these tools to the FBI. Some people say, great, they'll catch all the criminals, but that's how it started with the Chinese. Don't you understand? The Chinese government got these tools. It was just to catch criminals and extremists. Now they're just labeling people who disagree with them as extremists, who don't want to be a part of the Chinese communist system, who want to just live their lives as human beings and not be surveilled and told what to do, are heavily surveilled and being locked up in internment camps, the greatest genocide in modern history. So, and the last point also I want to make. So Josh Cabal sold our data. Josh Cabal gave our data to Boston Consulting Group, who the state of Connecticut has hired to figure out the reopening strategy. And there's the contract. I have the contract in the article with screenshots of it. And there's also, you can download it. I provided you a link to an iCloud folder that I have where you can download that. That was given to me by Tony. Thank you, Tony. He's great. Shout out there to him. Tony D'Angelo. You can follow him on Twitter. He does a lot of research on the Lamonts, and he has helped out a bit with information and filling me in on things like for the next article, like Unite Connecticut and Unite Us. And he does great work, and you can check him out on Twitter. So this is just basically the contract that you can see here. I have all the contract, and it says how they're not liable in the highlighted parts. Nobody's liable for any damages caused by their COVID protocols and tests and vaccines. You know, the government, the manufacturers, nobody's liable. But if you're injured by it, sucks to be you. So that was that. And let me see, was there one more last important point? Nope. Here's all the references and stuff like this. And I'm going to show you let me take you over here real quick, guys. Did that? Yeah, here we are. We're over here. Hold on a second. So this is coming soon. I'm going to play you this little video. This is the Hill. This
Opinion
is out
contributor
today.
Kristen Tate writes, quote, "The new domestic war on terror, kicked off by the riot on January 6th, has prompted several web giants to unveil predecessors to what effectively could become a soft social credit system by the end of this decade. Relying on an indirect hand from D.C., our social betters in corporate America will attempt to force the most profound changes our society has seen during the internet era." Tate continues, quote, "China's social credit system is a combination of government and business surveillance that gives citizens a score that can restrict the ability of individuals to take actions, such as purchasing plane tickets, acquiring property, or taking loans, because of behaviors. Given the position of several major American companies, a similar system may be coming here sooner than you think."
It's scary, huh?
The introduction of 5G technology is already changing our lives at rapid speed. Now that 5G is being deployed globally, there is an increasing possibility of malicious actors posing.
Sorry about that, guys. Back to Semaphore. I have another video. So when I close out and I end up right here on Semaphore. I got more. Okay, this is what they're planning. Okay, that is the writing on the wall. Look, I want to share this with you too. Just share this with you too. Hold on a second. This is Patrick Wood is great. He knows all about technocracy. He's studied technocracy. He's written extensively on technocracy. I talk about him a lot in my podcast. And I was meaning to quote some of his stuff in my article, and I just wrote, it was just so much I didn't quote anything. But I wanted to, because I'm writing the article on the Lamonts. You can find it on my website, jcherrypresents.com. And I'm reading this book simultaneously. And I'm like, my God, what is this? Is this like the blueprint? So Technocracy, The Hard Road to World Order is a great book that kind of puts it all together, very nice and neat in a way that you can read it. It's a hard read in respect that it's disturbing. And was reading this book simultaneously, and I just wanted to point this out to you. So you can sign up on Patrick Wood's. He has a website. I'm sorry, it's Technocracy News and Trends, and he does Citizens for Free Speech as well. He has a group, but I just wanted to bring this book up real quick. And I'm going to close out. I have another video I want to share with you guys. This is a report. Let me go over to here. This is a report. It's about 3 minutes long. Just take a peek.
It claims that its crackdown on Muslims is legal and it respects international law. Here's a report.
Armed police with guns. Guard towers, 25-foot tall concrete walls, and security at every checkpoint. This is China's largest detention center in Xinjiang. It is twice the size of the Vatican City, and it can house as many as 10,000 inmates. Recently, this detention center was dressed up for a visit by the foreign press. Beijing wants the world to believe that nothing wrong happens behind these walls, but China's guided tours of Xinjiang are designed to hide the genocide of Uyghurs. This very detention center used to be an internment camp. Dina Nurdubai is one of the victims who was detained here. Nurdubai now lives in Kazakhstan, but she hasn't been able to forget the horror she experienced inside the camp.
I would have been happy if they would have taken us to a normal school. They took me to a prison. Black gates like a prison. We were taken to dark rooms. We were hooded and our ankles were shackled for about 200 to 300 meters. If that was a normal school, why were we hooded and shackled? It's a lie. Nobody goes of their own will.
Reports say China is now converting these camps into formal jails or pre-trial detention facilities. The kind of prison that can be justified as legal in the eyes of the law. Some facilities are even being presented as schools, like this one. The Chinese say this facility used to be a training center where Uyghurs were taught vocational skills. Now it has been converted into a regular school. A reporter tried to verify this claim with one of the current students. He had no idea.
Have you heard of the vocational training center that used to be here? Sorry, I haven't heard of it.
The effort to rebrand detention centers could be the result of international pressure. United Nations Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet has been demanding access to Xinjiang to assess the human rights situation there. China refuses access as it continues to build more detention centers in Xinjiang. A new report has revealed the full scale of China's mass detention campaign. It says that Chinese officials can lock up 1 million Muslims at once if they want. China is now believed to have more than 300 prisons and internment camps in Xinjiang, with 206 million square feet of space, enough to detain or incarcerate more than 1 in 25 residents of Xinjiang, a number that is 7 times higher than the criminal detention capacity of the United States. The genocide of Uyghurs in China is a reality. Beijing wants to present a sanitized picture of its crackdown in Xinjiang, but the truth has a way of coming out, breaching even the great firewalls of China. Bureau Report, We Own, World is One.
Yeah, so, Josh Gabal's company, Thermo Fisher Scientific, provided the technological tools to the Chinese to mass surveil their people. That's a true story, guys. And you can find this article that I wrote on my website at jcherrypresents.com, and I'll wrap it up there. One last thing that I want to share with you, and I know that it really went over, and I didn't mean to do that. One last thing that I want to share with you. So, SEMA4, which is Thermo Fisher Scientific, Core Informatics, they're all like one big giant thing. I keep saying that so people know and understand that these things are the same. Annie Huntress Lamont, Oak Healthcare FinTech, Josh Gabal. So they just went public. I'm sorry, what did I do with that? Where we go? Here we go. They just went public. So here we go. $3 billion. Let me share the screen with you so you can see what I'm talking about. Wrong screen. Apologize for that. That was the Matthew Carter. So Mount Sinai Health System SEMA4 goes public at $3 billion. Way to go, Annie Huntress Lamont. You are the lady with the Midas touch of corruption. And Ned Lamont, who gets to pay millions and millions of dollars to beef up his image. You're a real piece of work. But, you know, hopefully the people are going to wake up to you and your felonious practices and philandering, because we got to stop it, guys. Because if we don't, we're in deep, deep doo-doo. And that's all that I could say about that. Deep, deep doo-doo. So you can find my article at jcherrypresents.com. I go into all of this. I talk about the Uyghurs. I talk about Thermo Fisher Scientific. I talk about SEMA4. I talk about the glaring conflicts of interest. I talk about the 16-page ethics report on the Lamonts that basically give them a pass to use something called blind trust, which basically says that they don't have to recuse themselves from meetings that they might have they might benefit financially from, like if legislation is passed, if like his wife's company gets a contract with the state of Connecticut to produce the testing, or his wife's company gets the ability to facilitate the financial transactions for the new cannabis business that was just passed, or his wife's company, Unite Us, is basically the go-between for the landlords and the tenants and the money that came from the state to pay the rents. All connected. All connected. Big deal. Big deal. So this is the first part in a long series that I'm writing this summer, and this was a long video, and I apologize for that, but it's so deep, and it was just almost as long as my article, but there was a lot to cover. So till we meet again, I'm going to be posting this video up on probably Rumble. BitChute is problematic lately. It's really taking a long time to get videos up there. I'm liking Rumble, so you can also follow me there. Rumble's got a live platform. I'm hoping to be able to start to go live and completely get off of these other social medias, because I'm going to be kicked off of them eventually. Anyway, I'm surprised I can even still go live on Facebook. People tell me that a lot of times the videos fade in and out. So I will be uploading this video to another source, and we'll be posting it on my blog. So if you want to find my work and the articles that I write, best place to find me is at jcherrypresents.com, and also my Telegram channel, which is just the J, Cherry Presents on Telegram, which you can find me there, and I post a lot of stuff there as well. So guys, stay strong. I try not to be too pessimistic with all this dark stuff that's happening around us. You know, we the people. I just have to believe that. That gives me the hope. We the people. And if we really join together instead of fighting, like, we got to stop fighting amongst each other. And they want that. They want this whole division. But yeah, we can keep that hope alive. All right. Till we meet again, guys. Bye.